It's been 10 days that the T20 World Cup 2024 has started. And here at Snickometer Podcast, me and Sarvesh were pondering when should we start our shows, when should we start our shows, when should we start our shows. Well, after that phenomenal turnaround in the India versus Pakistan game, we could not stop ourselves from recording a show today. And that is why we're finally in front of you after a longish break. Sarvesh, 10 days, lots of surprises, lots of action. It's been fun, isn't it, watching this World Cup?
Yeah, absolutely. 20 teams World Cup, and the perception was that the remaining teams, which are not regular teams, which don't play with the regular nations quite often, they will find it very difficult. This was the perception. But I think now, 10 days later, nobody's talking about that. Everyone is talking about the new teams and what they are doing. USA is playing their first World Cup. They already got their first win. Canada, first World Cup, first win. And so many teams are doing things which we never imagined before the start of the World Cup. And this is what makes this World Cup special. That it is very unpredictable what is happening, and probably what is going to happen in the next few days. Nobody can predict what is going to happen.
I think from the idea that the ICC had of growing the game, the
Yeah.
T20 format is the best, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it reduces the difference between a good side and a not so good side and makes the game that much more competitive. So, watching T20 cricket between an associate nation and a full member nation is still exciting because you still don't know who's going to win.
Exactly. I mean, if you the number of overs, once those overs start, they once those overs are cut down to 20, the gap is reduced, like you said. And if you are having situations or conditions like what we are having right now, then that gap becomes even narrower. And if when scores of 140 and 150 become the power scores, that's when the gap is almost cut down to, or almost cut down by 20-30% more. So this is what is happening. Even if you are getting, we have seen this in last few days only. Pakistan versus USA, in fact Netherlands versus South Africa. I mean, all these teams, the gap is cut down to such an extent where almost each and every game is going down to last 2-3 overs, and nobody can predict. So I think, yeah, rightly said. The lesser the number of overs, the pitches are assisting bowlers for a change. So I think the gap is reduced.
One of the things I also find fascinating is that as much as the associate nations have to start getting used to the ball coming that much faster and the batters hitting them that much further, so do the regular test playing nations have to get used to the lack of pace of the associate nations and the fact that they've got unconventional actions. They don't have much data to go by as to know what a particular bowler does or what a particular batter does. So that surprise factor, which the full member teams have to deal with, is also present.
Yeah.
And that is very evident in the games we've seen so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the surprise element is so highlighted. I mean, it's highlighted in such a way that it is becoming very difficult to predict. The usual things that, I mean, earlier we used to say that I can see that team X can score 60 runs in power play, or they can take these many wickets in power play. Right now, I mean, it is just very unpredictable. That surprise element is it is that is adding another flavor to this World Cup.
Perfect. Right. So, how we're going to review this first 10 days is we'll go group by group. We'll start off with Group A and then we'll move on to Group B, C, and D. Well, we've got the league table of Group A in front of us right now. As you can see, India, 2 matches, 2 wins, 4 points. They've beaten so far Ireland and Pakistan, both of the full member countries, both test playing nations. They've got games against Canada and the United States of America to go. Who would have thought at the start of this World Cup that in second place, after 2 matches each, would be the US of A with 2 wins, having beaten both Canada and Pakistan? Um, I mean, in the sense, this has been the story of USA, hasn't it, this World Cup so far?
Yeah, absolutely. The first World Cup, and I mean, I was listening to some of the interviews of this stuff, and I think it was a very senior official from their cricket board, and he said that we may not be at the same level, but we will be there. I think I remember this statement perfectly. That he said that they are going to be there and they are going to make their presence felt, and this is exactly what they are doing in the first game as well against Canada. They required close to 190, 195, and despite that slowish start, they managed to chase down that. And in the second game, I mean, nobody was expecting them to, in fact, give a proper fight to Pakistan. I mean, even if they had lost that game in the end, they would have still made the headlines. But they actually won that game in that manner, in super over. Defeating Pakistan in 20 overs setup was difficult, and defeating them in super over was even more difficult. It was just improbable, but they managed to do that. I mean, this is some achievement.
Yeah, if we can have a look at the summary of that game to kick off our analysis, because the reason I want to bring that USA versus Pakistan game up is this is where it all started going wrong for Pakistan. I mean, if you put on 159 against a team like USA, and we know that the batting pitches in this World Cup haven't been as great. So, they had a decent total on the board. And at that halfway stage, they would have fancied their chances of possibly looking at winning by a big margin, boosting their net run rate. Where do you think it all went wrong in that run chase or while defending that target?
I think 159 was probably good enough total, considering the fact that Pakistan's bowling attack is, the seam the pace attack. I mean, that is probably one of the strongest attacks that they have got on paper. And when you're playing against nation like USA or Canada, these teams, they don't really play that kind of high quality pace day in day out. So it becomes that much difficult for them to come out there and then perform in a matchless situations, and playing against the likes of Mohammad Amir, Naseem Shah, Haris Rauf, and Shaheen Shafri. I mean, these guys are very difficult. These guys are very quality. I mean, they are high quality bowlers, so it's not easy. But like you said, they would have fancied their chances. But I think that start that they got, I felt they needed some wickets up front. That did not happen. I mean, we were expecting Shaheen Shah Afridi and Mohammad Amir to give them those early wickets. That didn't happen for some reason. I mean, these are top quality swing bowlers. They managed to, they just negotiated that early period and they just went through with it. And talking about the batting, I felt they lost too many wickets up front. This is becoming a trend in this World Cup, that if you lose too many wickets up front with while batting first, then it becomes very difficult to recover towards the back end, and you end up getting 20 or 25 runs short or below par. So that's exactly what happened. Pakistan at one stage where they lost too many wickets, then they had that partnership. They would have felt that they could probably score about 170, 175, but then again, I mean, every time they had a partnership, USA just came back and took those wickets. They didn't allow them to have a mini partnership. They just had one big partnership. So I think USA, I think they did most things correctly on that day, even in that super over. I think I wanted to know your thoughts and on that super over, because this game went to super over and it felt like USA will nick this off in the 20 overs that they had to face. That did not happen. The game was tight, and then it went to super over. Now, when this game was in the 20 overs phase, at one point they were going comfortably. They were ahead of the asking rate, but at some point they sort of lost one wicket, and they sort of struggled against the quality of Mohammad Amir at the back end. But still, they required somewhere around 12 runs from last two deliveries, I think, or 12. I think it was 12 runs. Then they scored 1 6. Then I think they took a single, and then they needed 5 runs off last ball, and I think after that they scored that boundary. I mean, against Haris Rauf. So like I said, these guys are quality bowlers. Doing this against these guys is not that easy. And then that went to super over. Now I wanted to know your thoughts on what exactly, how do you assess that super over for Pakistan?
I think the choice of Mohammad Amir, and a lot of people have questioned why was he given the ball, but I think the thought process in going to him was correct, because as you can see from those figures, he was their best bowler
Yeah.
in the game itself, 1 for 25 or 4 overs. I guess the only question I have is, was this discussed before the game? Because I think one of the key things that teams don't do or a team like Pakistan will not do against a team like USA is they probably never even thought this will go to a super over.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether they had a plan. I wonder if at the end of the innings, they knew they were going to have a super over, it was decided then that Mohammad Amir would bowl.
Yeah.
And the reason I say this is because of the fact that when he finished his spell, he had switched off, and then he had to go back and he had to come back and then bowl the most important over of the match once again. And this is where I kind of just asked that question whether it was decided before. Good teams would have designated super over bowlers even before the match starts, like you have your designated penalty takers even before you
Yeah.
reach a penalty shootout. And that kind of mentally prepares those players to know that, hey, if a situation comes, this is what is expected of me. And I don't know whether that was done or not. So that'll be a question that only Mohammad Amir will be able to answer. That's one thing. He was getting it to reverse. And so I guess the only other question I would ask in that super over from Pakistan's batting is they had the likes of Iftikhar come in, Fakhar Zaman come in, and then Shadab came in. But amongst the three of them, you know, you've got to trust the biggest hitter in your team, which is Fakhar Zaman. If Saurabh Netrawalkar, who's a left arm bowler, is going to tail it back into him, who's got the best opportunity to hit a left arm
Yeah.
seamer? It would have been Fakhar Zaman. Now, Fakhar Zaman didn't take strike, which meant Iftikhar was taking strike, and then in the end, I think Fakhar Zaman ended up playing only one ball or something in that super over. So I'm not sure whether that was the right move. Also, I was hope if it was if you'd asked me, I'd ask Fakhar Zaman to take strike, and then Iftikhar on the other end, and and then Shadab coming in because Shadab clearly had scored runs. He was in good nick. He had scored 40 of 25 in the game, so it was the right move. It's just some little bit of game awareness, and I've questioned this game awareness in that New Zealand versus Afghanistan game as well the other day, where you had Fazal Haq Farooqi. If anyone who knows Fazal Haq Farooqi knows that he's a left armer who swings the ball into the right hander. Did Finn Allen have to take strike then against Fazil Haq Farooqi? Because you had Devon Conway, who was a left-hander in your team. He could have taken strike. So simple things like this, make a huge difference. And yeah, just not the sharpest day for Pakistan in the match itself or in the super over itself. So yeah, those would be my takes on that.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with those points. One more thing that I wanted to add, I think it was Sunil Gavaskar that he mentioned this point that after the first over, which Pakistan bowled, they started with Shaheen Afridi. Naseem Shah was actually coming to bowl. I think it was Sunil Gavaskar who mentioned this. I don't remember who exactly said this, but I think somebody made this point that it was Naseem Shah was coming to bowl, and suddenly Babar Azam asked Mohammad Amir to come in and bowl that over. So it was, it started from there, and then towards the end, I think you rightly said, probably he was not the designated super overs bowler. Probably they had somebody else in mind, or probably they didn't have any plan for this situation because they were not expecting this game to go to this stage. So probably that could have been one point to discuss. And I think once that super over started, I feel that the first ball went for a boundary. They scored 4 runs from the first delivery, and in next 5 deliveries they did not score a single boundary. Yet they scored 14 runs. Now tell me, how is that possible? You are scoring almost 3 runs per over in five deliveries without scoring a single boundary. I mean, you mentioned about game awareness of USA. I think you're spot on there. I think USA were aware what is going to come at them, and they were aware about every lapse in the field, every lapse in the concentration of the Pakistani fielders. They ran buys. They were aware that that extra run is on the offering. They were Mohammad Amir bowled 3 wides. They managed to run on all those three buys. They took. In fact, they even ran one overthrow in that over. So I mean, if you add all this, and they could gather somewhere around 18 runs from that over. And I think even after that, 18 runs against any team, against any bowling attack, in a super over situation, it is going to be difficult. So I think that's where I think it worked out well for USA in that batting.
Yeah, one of the arguments I've also heard is, Saurabh Netravalkar also bowled a couple of wides in
Yeah.
his over, in that super
Yes.
over.
Yeah.
But the difference between him and Amir was the fact that he had a right-hander on strike and he was going wide of the off stump,
Yeah.
which means the keeper finds it that much more easier to collect the ball. Whereas Rizwan, because he had a left-hander facing, I think it was Harmeet,
Yeah.
who was facing at
Yeah.
the time, and because Mohammad Amir was bowling and it was going down the leg side, which meant that Rizwan actually had to dive for the ball, which gave the batters that extra bit of time to
To come.
complete that
Yeah.
single.
Single.
Simple, small things like that, make a huge difference. I mean, you and I have played the game, so we know how it is sometimes, But yeah, at that level, from a professional like Mohammad Amir, who plays franchise cricket practically all over the world, you'd expect a bit more discipline. You'd expect a bit more from him in that situation. But hey, pressure does funny things to a lot of
Yeah.
people, and as we saw, yeah, it did that to Pakistan in that first game.
Yeah.
Well, if you thought they were under pressure in the first game, what do we say about their second game? Because this time they were chasing, they were not setting a total,
Yeah.
and they were chasing only 120, and they have somehow managed to make an absolute mess of it.
Yeah.
They have snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, as you would say.
Yeah.
Um, if we have the summary of that game,
Yeah.
what's your take on that second game?
I think before we move to that, I just wanted to mention about Saurabh Nitrawalkar. I mean, this boy.
Oh
A
yeah,
lot has been said about him. So people who don't know, I think he started his cricket in Mumbai. He's a Mumbaiker, and he started his cricket here. One of my good mates. He was a senior in engineering college, and they have played some cricket together. So he had some stories to tell. And then even he was in probables for Mumbai. He played a few games there, and then he moved to USA for his studies. He was always a bright student, and I think what he has done till now. He's still I was listening to one of his interviews. He still said that he's still working full time. 9 to 5 is his full job, and then he after that he plays cricket. So I think for someone like that to do this kind of a thing, I think it's incredible, and I think this will inspire a lot of young players to continue their side hustle in a way. I mean, I'm saying this as a side hustle because he was still working and he was still playing cricket after his work. I mean, this is what can happen if you keep going and if you keep believing in yourself. I think this is just I wanted to highlight about Saurabh Nitrawalkar.
no, that's
And
fine. And I was going to add to that by saying that is there anything that Saurabh Netravalkar can't do?
yeah,
Because I've seen him play cricket for USA. He was playing under 19 cricket for Mumbai.
in fact, he
He
has played World Cup for India as well, under 19 World Cup.
He's played the Under 19 World Cup for India. That's right. He's an engineer and he works for Oracle. And I've seen videos of him playing
Yeah,
the ukulele.
yeah,
I've seen videos of him singing. Apparently, he's a good cook also. That's what I've heard as well. I mean, what can't this guy do? Is he the Chuck Norris of the cricketing world, who can do basically everything and
yeah,
anything?
yeah, yeah. I mean, what he has done is incredible, and his journey. He's not the youngest. He's somewhere around 32, so 31, 32. So I think he kept going. After his under 19 days, he had to wait for this opportunity. He had to wait for his moment, and I think, like I said, he kept believing in himself and he kept doing what he wanted to do, and the end result is fantastic. I mean, potentially right now he can do anything. He just has to start doing that, and he can just pull it off.
Absolutely. Right. Let's move on to the big game. The reason this whole tournament is taking place is this one game. Pop-up stadiums, call it what you may, but the world had its eyes on New York this morning in New Zealand and last night in India. Um, right. So, biggest game of the group stage. India taking on traditional rivals. India putting getting into bat first, were looking good at one stage.
Yeah,
I must say, even after those two wickets that fell early. So both Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli falling relatively early. But then there was a partnership between Akshar Patel and Rishabh Pant. And at one stage, India looked like they were on par to get a total of around 150 to 160.
yeah,
Then came the collapse, ended up with 119 and bowled out, which is not something that you see very often in T20 cricket. Bowled out at the end of the 19th over, wasted 6 deliveries. And we were all twiddling our thumbs and thinking, geez, what an absolute meltdown and what a collapse. And all those thoughts, if you watch India Pakistan cricket in the 90s, we have lived through games like this where India's been absolutely going great guns and then collapsed in a mighty heap against the likes of Wasim and Waqar and Shoaib and all those guys. And we thought, geez, are we going to see one of those days again? But have you got something to say about a tweet that a certain gentleman sent at that time and said that he had a gut feeling, Sarvesh?
Yeah, I mean, after 119, you said that probably we had enough. We have enough on the board, and I said that probably we are 10, 15 runs short because I feel 130 could have been a fight. Could have been a fighting total 130, 135, but 120 on this wicket, I think I felt we were below par, and I think. I mean, if you ask Babar, even Babar right now, he would say that they had this game covered, and probably this was 20 runs below par. And I think that was the this is what how I assess the first innings. But I think you said that probably we have enough, and I think that's what we saw in the second innings. It turned out to be true, and 120 was a very difficult. It became a very difficult target because of the way Pakistan batted. I mean, yeah, I mean, greats to you for predicting that.
Yeah, I had a gut feeling though, and I'll tell you why I had that gut feeling was because it was a day game. What happens is if you have a day-night game, you see that under the lights, and if there is a little bit of dew around, the pitch actually gets better and better. The
Yeah,
ball skids off the surface a lot more, and it comes on better to the bat. But in a day game with the sun beating down like it was, and the pitch was um, tacky when the game started, and there was a bit of rain and there was a bit of moisture. We saw Imad Wasim today turning some balls. I have never seen Imad
yeah,
Wasim ever turn a cricket ball in my life. And today I saw him get proper turn that a left arm spinner gets.
yeah,
That just told me that the pitch was either moist or wet, or there was moisture in the surface, which is why the ball was gripping and he was getting that turn. Now, with the sun beating down, obviously that pitch was going to become harder.
yeah,
Once it became harder, those indentations in the pitch would become up and down. And I thought it would just get more and more difficult to bat on. And if you saw the way the Indian batters got out, the likes of Shivam Dube, the likes of Jadeja, where the ball just wasn't coming onto the
yeah,
bat. And I thought if they're finding it that hard, we've got the kind of bowlers who can make life miserable for the Pakistani batters, and that's where that thinking came from. And I thought, I think we might just have enough here. I knew Bumrah was going to bank because he's just in the zone at the moment. You wake him up at 2 in the morning, you give him a cricket ball, and he will bowl a 4 over spell for less than 20 runs and pick up 2 wickets at least. That's the kind of form that Jasprit Bumrah is in right now. So I knew he would be good, and I thought if he can just get a little bit of support, and I was hoping that support would come from Mohammad Siraj today. The wickets didn't come, but he did keep
yeah,
the runs down. And yeah, I just thought that India would be still in it. And lo behold, Bumrah didn't let me down. Neither did any of the Indian bowlers. They've defended 119, won by 6 runs, but a lot to say about that Pakistan batting effort.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll just quickly switch on to this graphic. Uh, Now, if you see this, the blue line is basically the run progression of India, and green is for Pakistan. Now, like you said, till 11th or 12th over, it was going well. We were 88 for 3 from 11 overs. But after that point, we lost Surya Kumar Yadav, and from there, we could never recover. Now, you will see a lot of dots, a lot of blue dots, which are basically the wickets that we lost. And after 11, after that 12th over, we lost too many wickets. The run rate started coming down. In the end, it was just about 6 runs per over. It was just over 6 runs per over, just about there. But we lost too many wickets after that. Pakistan, I felt they had a plan. They had basically kept that long on and long off area empty. They were asking all the batters to go above that infield and take the bowlers on. They knew that there is some if they were hitting the good length areas, and they knew that it is difficult, because I see that Rishabh Pant got out in a similar manner. He was looking to go over the infield. Surya Kumar Yadav again in a very similar manner. Naseem Shah bowled a very good. I mean, you expect Shivam Dube, a batter like Dube, to handle that slower ball well. But I think just if you just judge them by the reaction after playing that ball, even Jadeja, I mean, that could tell you that the pitch was holding a bit, and I think they were hitting the right areas, and I think it was an indication that something is there in the pitch, not something in fact a lot of us. I mean, bowlers had a lot of help in that, and I think after that first innings, they were asking Mohammad Amir, and he said he didn't say that it's a below par total or something like that. He said in fact it's I think he mentioned, I don't remember the exact, but I think he said it's a decent score. He didn't say that they are below par or something like that. So even he knew that it is not going to be easy. And when Pakistan came onto bat again, the patterns are pretty similar. You can see that from the graphs that they started in a very similar manner. Those up and downs on the chart, very 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 similar. But they were always somewhere around that 6 runs per over mark. They were never going beyond that. Now India started in a very aggressive manner. Then they lost wickets. Then again after that power play, they were batting at 7.58 runs per over. But Pakistan, they were always, because they had a target in mind, they were somewhere around 5-6 runs per over, and they were going at that particular rate. And what happens is in this situation is that when you're going just about par, and if you lose wickets, then you invite additional dot balls, you invite additional pressure. And once Fakhar Zaman got out, I think Mohammad Rizwan, he had to take those chances because Imad Wasim was not scoring quick runs when he came onto bat. But I think Mohammad Rizwan, I think in my opinion, he chose a wrong person to target, and I don't think Bumrah was the right guy to do that, because you see that grey line, that is basically the Fakhar Zaman's wicket, and then after a dot after that was Rizwan's wicket, and from there the red line and blue line. Red line is the required rate, and blue line is the current rate at that point. That from that line you can see, from that point that those two lines started going away from each other. That basically tells you that the required run rate was creeping up and the current run rate was just going downhill. So I think that was the critical moment. I think Bumrah again, I mean, I don't have enough words to describe what he's doing right now, but I think he comes in and takes those wickets in a very timely manner, always gives that edge to to any team that he's playing for. So I think again he did his job there, and I think, like I said, from that Rizwan's dismissal, it started going downhill for Pakistan. Then they never recovered.
Good point you make there, because that Rizwan's dismissal, I remember looking at the win predictor at
Yeah.
that time,
Yeah.
and at that time, the win predictor predicted Pakistan had a 93%
Yeah.
chance of winning that game. India had a 7% chance of winning that game. Then Rizwan gets out, and that win predictor then starts slowly clawing its way back into India's favor. And as you said, you can see the run rate climbing. As soon
Yeah.
as that run rate started separating itself from the required rate, um, that's where it all turned to custard for them. And yeah, India absolutely stealing one from right under Pakistan's feet.
Yeah.
What do you think a game like this will do to their morale? Because they've already lost a game to US.
Yeah.
They've already now lost a game that they should have won 99 times out of 100. Um, is there any way they can salvage anything from this World Cup?
I think it's right now it's difficult because they do not see USA. They have the destiny in their own hands. Pakistan will once again have to rely on somebody else to do the job for them, and this is never a good situation for any team when you are relying on somebody else to do it for you. I think that's not a good situation to be in, and I think right now the games to come is India versus USA and India versus Canada. Now we expect India versus USA to be two teams sitting at the top. These two teams will go against each other. Now, if India win this game, they are basically qualified. If USA win this game, then it becomes even more difficult for Pakistan to qualify from there, because what then happens is Pakistan will play Ireland and Pakistan will play Canada. Now, for Pakistan to qualify, they will have to win these two games by a good margin, because let's also keep a close eye on that net run rate. They are minus 1.7. USA are currently 0.6 positive. That's a difference of about 2.3. So they will also have to cover that net run rate. So they will hope that Pakistan will hope that India will defeat USA, and then also Ireland will also do it for them. So basically, what they want is India defeating USA and Ireland also defeating USA, and then Pakistan will hope that they can win it big against Ireland and Canada. So this is what Pakistan want at this moment. But if USA win it against India, or USA win against Ireland, then that basically means that Pakistan cannot qualify. So again, that's a tricky situation.
Yeah, it's a very familiar situation for Pakistan, though. Every World Cup, they depend on other people to do things for them, like it was in Australia last time when they lost to Zimbabwe, and then Netherlands beat South Africa, and that's why they got a lifeline, and they had to kind of do that. But I just think that once in a while that works. Every single World Cup, if you turn up and expect other teams to do you favors, you're just stretching that rubber band of luck too much. To an extent where it will snap. And I just get the feeling, looking at this team right now, gives me no confidence. I genuinely don't think they don't have any chances of making it beyond the group stage of this World Cup.
It looks difficult because USA is basically they are playing in their home country, in front of their home fans, and they are a team who are looking good and who are in good nick at the moment. And Pakistan are basically going downhill in confidence. So I think confidence can do wonders at this stage. So I think I can see India and USA qualifying for the next stage.
Right, so that's Group A. We spent a lot of time on Group A because there was such exciting action happening there. Group B, on the other hand, lots happening here as well. First things first, Sarvesh, how costly is that rain-off encounter going to prove for England against Scotland?
I mean, even in last World Cup, if you remember, England were playing, I think they were playing against Ireland, and they lost that game by 1 run with Duckworth-Lewis because of the rain factor again. And I think again here, the game was washed out. They got just 1 point. Scotland now sitting at the top with 3 games played, 1 no result and 2 wins. That's 5 points from 3 games, and they just have to play 1 more game against Australia. So I think that game, see, in a 5-team tournament, in a 5-team group, you are basically going to play just 4 matches, and 1 match, if it gets washed out, then basically 25% of your games are washed out. So that 1 match carries a lot of weight, and I feel that, like you said, that is going to be a very critical factor in this group, because also let's not forget England's net run rate is now negative 1.8 because of the way they lost to Australia. We'll discuss about that later. But because of the way they lost to Australia, that net run rate is negative 1.8. And what Scotland did to Oman yesterday, they chased down that target of 150 odd in 13 overs. So that their net run rate is in fact plus 2.6. So now England will have to hope that they will defeat Oman and Namibia with big margins, and then also they will have to hope that somebody they will have to hope that Australia will defeat Scotland with a very big margin. So I think again similar, not exactly the same situation, but I think they will have to rely on other teams to do it for them.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating because England came to the 2019 World Cup as the defending 2023 ODI World Cup as the defending champions. And didn't make it out of the group stage. They didn't make it to the semifinals. In fact, they didn't look like they were going to win anything at that World Cup. Here they come in as defending champions, having won the cup in 2022, and once again on the verge of being eliminated in that group stage. It's going to be fascinating because I genuinely felt that they had a good team. Those top 3 of theirs, Butler, Salt, and Will Jacks, are, if they get going, they are the best in the world by current form. But yeah, you need a bit of luck in these tournaments as well. And currently, England not having a whole lot of those. But it wasn't luck that lost them the game against Australia. It was Australia once again coming to a World Cup and then turning on the magic. If we can pull up that summary of that game and have a look at how it all transpired between those 2 traditional rivals as well. Australia batting first, as you can see, not a single batter crossing 40. David Warner top scoring with 39, but yet Australia getting to 201 for 7. Travis Head continuing from the Sunrisers Hyderabad. He didn't have Abhishek Sharma as his opening partner, but I think David Warner must have felt a lot younger smashing it around like a young Abhishek Sharma there, along with Travis Head. Um, and England falling short. They were also in that run chase until Joss Butler got out. It looked like they would get home, but then falling well short, which is why their net run rate is negative 1.8, like you
Yeah.
pointed out. Where do you think it all went wrong
I'm
for
just
them?
taking a look at the scorecard and the bowling card. Will Jacks, he's not there in this scorecard because we are showing summary, but
Yeah, 1 over for
exactly that
22.
second over for 22 runs, and
Yeah,
Josh Butler said that it was a call based taken based on his gut feeling. I mean that can work for you sometimes, but when it doesn't come off, it looks very bad. And I think that 1 over, if you give anything away to Travis Head, and I mean David Warner, you still expect him to bat normally, but if you give anything away to Travis Head at this moment where he's batting beautifully, he's going to punish you. And I think that's where it all started going downhill for England. I mean that second over 22 runs. I mean we are seeing in this World Cup, we are seeing teams scoring 22 runs in 3-4 overs, first 3-4 overs, and if you're giving away 22 runs in 1 over, then it is going to cost you a lot. So I think that's where I think they gave that start to Australia, and once you give an inch to Australia, we all know what they can do.
I guess the that gut feeling of Joss Butler might have potentially come from the fact that when Will Jacks was playing for RCB, he actually got Travis Head out,
Yeah,
and made him with a bit of turn.
yeah,
But then these are completely different wickets, and international cricket's a different beast. The only game in the tournament where a team has scored 200 plus, I don't think there's been
yeah,
any other game that's come close to that score. So yeah, it just goes to show that Australia are really um, sh- kind of setting the benchmark as far as batting is concerned, and yeah, England just not able to match them. I've got um, a quick question around England's middle order as well. Um, we've seen Johnny Bairstow in this year's IPL. He had
yeah,
one good innings where he got that 50 ball 100, but beyond that, he was struggling. You've got him coming in at number 4. You got Liam Livingston there, who had a horrendous IPL. Didn't give us
yeah,
anything. Moeen Ali didn't play a lot in the IPL. Looked good while he was there. He hit Maxwell for about 3 sixes in 1 over, I think, in that
yeah,
innings.
yeah.
But yeah, just those three names, one after the other, and Harry Brook coming back
Coming
after
off
a
from a
long,
break.
long
Yeah,
time
absolutely.
in international cricket. So they're not coming in with a whole lot of confidence. So if that top order doesn't come off,
Yeah.
then it's a struggle in that middle, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, the top three of Sword, Butler, and Will Jacks, they basically have the onus of giving them good starts. But if that doesn't happen, then I don't, I don't feel very confident about Johnny Bairstow sitting at number 4. I mean, he's not. I mean, he's basically at his best when he opens. But this is a new position for him in T20. He has batted there before, but I think he's at a situation in his career where at this current stage where I think he needs to bat higher up. So I don't think that's the right number for him. But anyway, moving on to Moeen Ali and Harry Brook. I mean, just like you said, I mean, in fact, even Liam Livingston, he has been struggling for a while now. He hasn't been scoring those kind of runs in any of the franchise cricket that is playing right now. So I think that middle order is short of confidence, and I think they needs their top order to give them those good starts. But if that is not happening, then there's some trouble for them. That's the bottom line. Also, I mean, it's not just about the middle order batting. In my opinion, their bowling as well is it's not the strongest. I mean, there is Chris Jordan there. I mean, we have seen him going for plenty in last few years. He's there. Jofra Archer is also making a comeback. You don't expect players to be at their best when they make those comebacks. And then look at it. I mean, Liam Livingston and Moeen Ali, they are basically playing as the key spinners along with Rashid. And so even that bowling, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence there.
Yeah, I think one name that's not there is Mark Wood, and I think he also traveled for
Yeah,
plenty in that game.
yeah,
We already spoke about Will Jacks going for 22.
yeah,
A key member who's not there in that side, who was man of the tournament in 2022 and the man of the finals in that 2022 T20 World Cup, is Sam Curran. And I
yeah,
think currently Chris Jordan is keeping him out of the side. Um, uh, whatever I saw of Sam Curran in the IPL, I was quite happy because I think
Yeah,
he did bowl well and he did bat well when he was given the opportunity. I think he'd give England more with the bat than what Chris Jordan gives them,
yeah.
and he'll probably give England a bit more with the new ball if he can find some swing with it as well.
I think not just with the new
But
ball. I think with the older ball as well. We have seen him bowl
yeah,
well at the death overs phase, and also I was very surprised with the way he captained that Punjab side. I mean, captaincy is not really a thing which you associate with Chris with Sam Curran. So I think that tells you that he's a thinking cricketer. He knows what he's doing. So I think having that kind of a personality in that team will definitely help England. I think they should really look to get him in next few games.
absolutely couldn't agree more. So we've already looked at Group B. We've said England are going to struggle. So at this stage, it's looking like Australia and Scotland going through from there,
Yeah,
and USA and India going from Group A.
yeah.
What's happening in Group C? Oh no, this is the group of my team, my second team, I should say. Right, so Group C, Afghanistan leading 2 matches, 2 wins. West Indies, second place, 2 matches, 2 wins, only second place because of their net run rate being less than Afghanistan's. Third place, Uganda, the team qualifying from the African continent, keeping Zimbabwe out of this World Cup. 3 matches, their first World Cup win, and looking smart with 2 points there. Papua New Guinea from my region, which is the East Asia Pacific region, they are the qualifiers from here. Although they haven't won a game, they gave West Indies a bit of a fright in
Yeah.
that opening game of theirs.
Yes.
But last and definitely not the least, New Zealand, one match, lost it by a massive margin and with a negative net run rate of minus 4.20. Um, they've played one game, but it looks like they've got 1 foot out of the door already.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean that one game, and I think that see the scorecard. I mean it's not a very good scorecard to look at if you're a New Zealand fan. 159 was a target. I think it is very similar to what Pakistan gave to USA, or 160 in this right now. I think it looks like a good total. But I think even if it's a good total, you expect New Zealand to put on a much better show than what they did against Afghanistan. I mean, 75 a lot, and this is not the New Zealand that we normally see in big tournaments like World Cup, because no matter what they're doing before the World Cups or after the World Cups, they always show up for the World Cups. But I think this time, I think this particular game, their first game of the tournament, they have let's not forget that they have played only one game, but still, I mean that negative net run rate is going to give them some troubles. I mean this 75 for all out. I think 75 all out. This is not a good reading. What do you think?
Yeah, where do I start analyzing this game? Because Gurbaz scored 80 by himself, the entire New Zealand side being bowled out for 75. So it was Gurbaz beating New Zealand by 5 runs, if you look at it that way.
Yeah,
That was number one. This, I guess, 3 or 4 talking points in this whole mess that New Zealand find themselves in. The first thing is that um, we've had lack of quality cricket coming into this tournament because, as you know, about 6 or 7 of our players were playing in the IPL. Um, the problem was that they were picked by IPL sides, but they're not getting game time. So someone like a Glenn Phillips, he sat on the bench for 16 games that the Sunrisers played.
Mitch
Someone like
Santner,
a Kane
same.
Williamson
Yeah,
sat for 12 games. He played
yeah,
only two.
yeah,
Santner played four.
yeah,
Lockie Ferguson was picked more regularly. He played
yeah.
seven. Daryl Mitchell played 13. And
Even
Rachin
Matt
Ravindra
Henry
played
was
10.
Matt Henry was
Matt
also there,
Henry
but he
played only
played.
four
Yeah,
games
yeah,
for Lucknow Super Giants. So a lot of them spent a lot of time on the bench. So they didn't come match fit into this tournament. New Zealand also chose not to play their practice games in this tournament for some bizarre reason. And the reasoning behind that was a lot of players were coming from a lot of different directions. And they said that after the IPL, the players wanted to go home, spend some time with the family, which is being talked a lot about in New Zealand at the moment because their families were traveling with them in India at the IPL anyways. So everybody's questioning as to why was the need for them to go back home and then go to the West Indies, and then they decided not to play any practice games. That was that. I've already spoken about when you don't play matches regularly, that match fitness or that match sharpness or even your game awareness gets affected. And we saw that with New Zealand. They dropped some easy chances. We saw um, Ibrahim Zadran getting a life when he was on about, can't remember how much, about 13. Um, Finn Allen dropped him on the boundary. He went on to add 31 more after being dropped. Ramanullah Gurbaz, he could have been run out, but Devon Conway didn't collect the ball properly, so he got a life when he was on 19. He went to score 80. Both those wickets costing New Zealand 92 runs. These are not small numbers, and when you look at the difference between victory and defeat, these lapses in the field proving costly. Questions about the team selection as well. I mean, Rachin Ravindra, New Zealand's best batter at the
Yeah.
ODI World Cup, and he played well against Australia in the T20s as well at home, and doesn't get a place in this side. I cannot understand how you can keep someone like him out of a tournament. He's clearly a player who loves the big stage, who's got the game for the big occasion, mature head on young shoulders, all round skills, lots of right handers in the Afghanistan side. He gives you a bit of left arm spin. From a matchup point of view, also, it was looking good. So I'm not sure what the thinking was about leaving him out of this side. Um, yeah, heaps of points to pick and think about, but just an absolute horror show for them in Guyana. Um, as I said, this defeat could be the difference between them making it, because now what they've got to do is they've got to beat the West Indies, who are the hosts and one of the favorites of this tournament. They've got to
Yeah.
beat them, and they've got to hope that Afghanistan um, does
Yeah.
them a favor by beating the West Indies as well.
Yeah.
Because if West Indies, Afghanistan, and New Zealand all land up on
Same
on
points.
4 points, same number of points, then New Zealand's going home because of that massive negative net
Yeah.
run rate that they have.
Absolutely. So West Indies versus New Zealand and West Indies versus Afghanistan are now two key games where I think the New Zealand will have to win basically everything what they have, because they don't want to get into situations where the net run rate would come in. So basically, they have 3 games left. They need to win all three, and
Yeah,
then also, if then also they will have to hope that one of Afghanistan or West Indies they drop points, and then they will also hope that the net run rate will be greater than Afghanistan or West Indies. So plenty of ifs and plenty of calculations going on there. So I think even I think similar situation to what England are facing, they will have to rely on some other teams to do them a favor. So I think they still have their destiny in their own hands, but they will still the job is cut out. They will have to do some extraordinary things. The winning margin has to be good, and they will have to win basically all the games.
it's going to be difficult. It's not impossible, but yeah, it's just and the problem never look. We can understand our team losing. It's the manner in which you
Yeah,
lose that really
absolutely.
affects you.
Yeah,
It's easier to come out of. Sometimes they say, when you get absolutely blown out of the park, it's sometimes easier to forget about that game and come out
yeah,
fighting and gunning on all cylinders. But the fact that and I'm not saying this with a lot of disrespect, but a fact like a team like Afghanistan caught them unguarded um, will hurt them, because this I don't think anybody expected that. I'm not saying that Afghanistan's not capable of beating New Zealand. Yes, they are, because I actually did a stat, and since you are a statsman, you will love the stat. If you looked at the playing 11 for Afghanistan and the playing 11 for New Zealand, playing 11 of Afghanistan had played 26 T20 matches more than
oh
the playing 11 of New Zealand. So that just shows you.
wow,
And that's after Mujibur Rahman didn't play that game, because he has played 241 T20 internationals. So, sorry, T20s. So if he had
yeah,
been there, that number would have been even higher. So by no means Afghanistan are pushovers in this tournament. They're here to stay, and the kind of cricket they're playing, I
yeah.
think they'll go a long way in this tournament. But yeah, this could be curtains for New Zealand if things don't go their way.
Since you mentioned about Afghanistan, I'm just diverting a bit and just checking. to a new graphic. This is what Afghanistan have been doing in this tournament. Now the red line is the run rate, is the current run rate at that particular point, and dots are basically wickets. Again, I mean, just look at the first wicket when they lost that first. It was over number 15 when they lost that first wicket. I mean, if your openers are going, in that manner till over number 15, now the the red line is basically the final. Basically, what has happened is till over number 14, they were going at somewhere around 10 runs per over, more than 10, in fact, somewhere close to 11. Now, for them to finish at 183, they had to go at that red the what the red line is indicating. So basically, they just had to go at 5 runs per over from over number 14 or over number 15 for them to finish at 183 for 5. So basically, when your red line is below your blue line, that tells you that you have basically underachieved. At the end, they should have been somewhere close to 200, 210 in this match. But they lost some wickets at the end. They could not do that. But still, 183 for 5 is still a very, very good return. So that tells even if they are underachieving, they are still getting those runs. I mean, this is just one game against Uganda, and this is the second game against this is the game against New Zealand. Again, they lost their first wicket close to over number 14, over number 15. And again, from there, in the end, they should have gotten a few more runs, but they ended up scoring, I think, 10 or 15 runs short. But still, 160 was a good total. So I think this is what Afghanistan are doing. I think I saw the stats of Rehmanullah Gurbaz. He is the highest run scorer at this stage, and he has scored somewhere close to 45% of the runs that Afghanistan, the entire team, have scored. So I think that tells you that the opening partnership is really clicking for them, and they are basically driving this tournament for them.
Yeah, got a lot of time for Amanullah Gurbaz because once Phil Salt left KKR, we saw that he stepped up beautifully for them and was quite instrumental in giving them those good starts towards the end of IPL 2024 as well. Well, that's the story from Group C. At this stage, it looks like Afghanistan and West Indies are going to be the two teams that go through from here. So we've got India and USA so far, we've got Scotland and Australia, and we've got Afghanistan and West Indies. Last but not the least, we've got the group of death. This was supposed to be the toughest group of them all because of the kind of competition going on. But South Africa had a bit of a scare against Netherlands, but still managing to find ways thanks to Killer Miller and Tristan Stubbs keeping their cool heads and taking them through to victory. 2 matches, 2 wins, 4 points. They look set to take a step into the Super 8s. It's going to be interesting to see who joins them because Bangladesh, Netherlands, Nepal, and Sri Lanka, all 4 teams still in with a chance of making it. I think there's a game scheduled for starting in a few hours from now in this group, which will kind of make the picture slightly more clearer. But are you surprised at Sri Lanka's dismal performance in this World Cup, Sarvesh?
Yes. To be honest, yes. I mean, see, this group is you expect from this group. I mean, I'm not disrespecting any team, but you expect South Africa and Sri Lanka to qualify from this group. I mean, when you look at all the 4 groups, you expect a few teams to have greater chances of qualifying, and I think in this group you would expect South Africa and Sri Lanka to qualify because of what they have done before and because of the quality of the players that they have. Sri Lanka, they have almost, they have made some changes, but they have almost the entire team available with them. I think Madhushanka, I don't know if he's not picked or if he's injured, but he's not there, probably injured. But they still have Pathiran, they still have Tushara, they still have Hasaranga himself is a big force these days. So I think they have their players available. Angelo Matthews, with all his experience, he is back. So you expect this team to play in a much better manner. That game against Bangladesh, they scored only around 125. Again, another game going down to the wire till that last over, second last over. But I think you expect them to defeat Bangladesh, particularly in these conditions. But Bangladesh played really well on that particular day. I mean, after losing those wickets, that particular moment when Ridoy hit 3 sixes against Asranga, I mean, in my opinion, that basically sealed the game for Bangladesh. Despite they lost a few wickets after that, but they needed that big over. Ridoy gave them that spark in the middle, and then they just sort of were limping to the victory, and they just managed to get those points. But still, look at the 4 games that have been played. Sri Lanka lost against South Africa, and then they lost against Bangladesh. So what this does is, now Sri Lanka have played against both the stronger teams. So now, if you lose against the stronger two of the strongest teams of the group, then you're basically saying that now you have to play against two of the weaker sides, and then you'll have to hope that one of those weaker sides will defeat one of the stronger. I mean, it's beyond that. I mean, uh, let's assume that South Africa, they defeat Bangladesh, then and they qualify. So basically, South Africa will qualify. So Bangladesh will have one victory and one defeat. So somebody else will also have to defeat Bangladesh for Sri Lanka to have a chance on net run rate. So they are so far behind that they will have to hope that somebody else will do it for them, and then they will also have to they'll also have to make up in that net run rate column. So it's very difficult for Sri Lanka.
The only good news for them, though, is that Bangladesh is equally capable of coming up with some dismal performances themselves. So, and that's the only reason I said
Yeah.
that all the 5 teams still are in with a chance,
Yeah.
is because of the fact that I know what Bangladesh are capable of. They are also not, they lost a T20 series to the USA recently, which was like a warm up for this World Cup. And so they're not looking in the best shape either. That's why I was very surprised that they got over the line against Sri Lanka
Sri
that day.
Lanka. Yeah.
Sri Lanka were in a good position and then lost, I think, something ridiculous like 7 wickets for 35 or something like that, and absolutely made a hash of it. Um, so I think the coming days will kind of clear that picture for us. But at this stage, if we go by the league table, it looks like South Africa and Bangladesh are going to be the teams to go through from this group. So we've got India, USA, we've got Australia and Scotland, we've got West Indies and
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan, and Bangladesh and South Africa. Some big names missing there, Pakistan missing, Sri Lanka missing. We've got New Zealand potentially missing. We've got England potentially missing. So yeah, it's been a fascinating tournament so far. Lots of shocks. Normally you just have the 1 or 2 shocks, but this time we're likely to have a shock in each group of a big team missing out. But that is the beauty of the World Cup. That is the beauty of a 20-team tournament. I've loved watching it so far. What about you, Sarvesh?
I mean, if you have to, we've always talked about cricket not being the global sport like football, but if you have to make this sport a global sport, then I think you will need such World Cups where just the traditional teams are not qualifying, where the teams where the lesser known teams are qualifying for the next rounds. I think we needed this kind of a World Cup. I mean, I'm saying this because this is coming at some cost. I mean, the teams who are going to miss out are big teams, and I mean, for their fans, it might be. Fans will not like this, but I think cricket basically to call itself as a global sport, it needed a World Cup like this, where the weaker teams are basically announcing themselves and qualifying for the next round. They are just not there for the sake of qualification, for the sake of participation. They are there for to give a tough fight. So I think this kind of a World Cup, this kind of a tournament was pending for a long time, and I think now we are finally getting it. It is coming at some cost of at an expense of probably New Zealand, probably Pakistan and Sri Lanka. But I think it was long due. For the neutrals, it's a great tournament because it has been a tournament of great amount of shocks. When maybe shocks is not the right word now that we are seeing so many games, unpredictable games. Maybe shock is not the right word, but the World Cup that we have seen so far, I think it's nobody could predict what is going to happen on that given day.
And don't forget, this is also a precursor for the Olympics, because this is the kind of scenarios you're going to see at the Olympics as well. You'll have a lot more teams playing that. And it just makes it very, very interesting and gives hope to a lot of these associate nations that the more they play against the bigger nations, the more the chances, the more the exposure, and the more the refinement of their skills is what we will see in the near future. Do you have anything else to add, Sarvesh, before we wind up this review of the first 10 days of this World Cup?
I think, it goes without saying that we are going to have some very close games in next few days. And I think once the I think let's we are done with we are done with 2 games. I think most of the teams have played 2 games. We'll probably be back after the third game or probably after the group stage. But I think what we are going to see in next few rounds is going to be very critical. It will decide a fate of a lot of teams. So I expect a lot of close games again. And teams who have been down and out, I expect them to make a good comeback. That's what make tournaments like World Cups very special. That teams who are down and out, they basically come back harder at you. So I think I expect the same thing from Pakistan, New Zealand, Sri Lanka. I expect them to make some ground, and I think it is going to be a good World Cup. I also expect a few changes in these teams, probably for the teams who have already sort of secured that top spot. Not a lot of teams have done that, but probably some changes could happen. Because let's not forget that the second stage of the tournament, the Super 8 stage, will happen in West Indies. And right now we are playing in US and West Indies, so probably equations will change when these teams will go to West Indies. So they will have to probably these teams will also look to get some of their players in, and look to give them some game time before they move to that next stage. So I think a lot of things to look forward.
I tell you what I'm looking forward to is I'm looking forward to India getting out of New York and finding a slightly better pitch to play on. That's what I'm looking forward to because we do love a better balance between
Yeah.
bat and ball in the game, but I think this balance is currently very heavily, especially in New York, is heavily skewed in the favor of the bowlers, and
Yeah.
that's never a good sign
I was
either.
looking at the numbers. Average totals at New York, it is less than 120. In fact, less than 110.
Yeah.
So you can imagine what's happening there.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Well, with that, we come to an end of this edition of the Snickometer podcast. If you liked what we've done today, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a share, and do comment about our work. Tell your friends and families to support us and follow us as well. We'll come back to you possibly at the end of the group stage now. We're almost halfway through the group stage, so we'll come back to you at the end, do a bit of a review there, and look forward to the Super 8. It's going to be an exciting tournament from what we've seen so far. Uh, I think the crowds are just getting into the scheme of things. So yeah, keep watching, keep following your teams, and keep watching this Nick Cometa podcast. Until next time, this is your host Rahul and Sarvesh saying bye, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.